There we go. Yes.
All right. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the City of Monona Plan Commission, Monday, February 22nd, 2021. Could you please call the roll, Doug?
Chair Moore.
Here.
Alder Goforth.
Present.
Mr. Homburg.
Here.
Ms. Fowlett.
Here.
Ms. Fox.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Stein.
Here.
Mr. Holmquist is excused.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from February 8th, 2021?
I
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any corrections, changes, additions? Seeing, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Great, thank you. Do we have anybody here this evening to make an appearance on something that is not a public hearing this evening? Seeing none, we'll move to unfinished business. 5A, public hearing on the request of Wisconsin Physician Service, WPS, represented by DLR Group for approval of a zoning permit for new construction at 1765 West Broadway, case number 2-002-2021. Who would like to present this evening?
Hi, Nancy. This is Ken Roseth,
Hi,
Vice
Ken.
President of Facility Operations.
Nice to
I'd
see
like
you.
to thank you for allowing us to present our project. It's an exciting project for us. It includes both technology and innovation for our company as we morph into the next century. Tonight, our team that's presenting to you is led by myself and Andrew McCready, who is the Director of Facility Operations for WPS, along with DLR, who is our architect. Matt and Eric should be on the line. I don't know, Doug, if you've got them hooked in, but they will be presenting. They are doing the structural, architectural, mechanical, and electrical planning for this project. Ayers is our civil engineer. Scott is on the call tonight to answer any civil questions. We did get a civil response already from the City of Monona, so Scott's in the process of responding to all of your requests and your concerns, and we'll take care of the needs there. I think fire hydrant, extra ponding, those kind of things. Newcomb is our contractor. We have Brett Newcomb and Preston on the line just to answer any direct contract related questions. And with that, again, we want to thank you for allowing us to present tonight. And I'm going to hand this right now off to Matt with DLR, and he's going to go through some sketches on the Zoom. Matt?
Yeah, thanks, Ken. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if that works. All right. I trust everybody can see my screen. Thank you.
Yes.
So what I'd like to do, just as more just kind of clarification detail of the building elevations and some of the materials. It's the same stuff we presented in the review package set. This is just a little more detail, a little more kind of personal presentation to the project itself. Help clarify what's going on with the building. What's additional would be, I'm going to call it a finish board, finish image, which is kind of a digital mock-up of some of the finishes that we have on the exterior of the building as well to help kind of explain what's going on. And again, the same stuff that you have in your packet previously. It's just more detail and a little easier way to look at the project and allow me to kind of present it. So this is really just an aerial view from the north side. I'm going to go rather fast just because you've seen it all, but just to kind of get you all up to speed. So a view from the north looking south, the existing building, we call RKB. This is our new facility. And that is solar on top of the warehouse part of the building in terms of the material storage. It really is what it is in the central dock, and then the print and imaging center, and then the data and support part of the building in terms of break room, et cetera. And then the link actually to the RKB building. So the way the building's laid out, primary entry is through RKB. That's where that staff security position actually is. But there is a secondary entrance exit to the building off of this minor parking lot. Which will have a handicap stall as well. And so as you come now all the way to the south of the building, this is really kind of standing in those storm ponds, if you would, to the south across the road, looking at RKB, the imaging portion of the building, and then the central docks. You can kind of see the dock and how it's screened by the trees and roadway and other materials of the project. So as you come back to that front north side, the front door, as we're coming in the parking lot from the north, that's the link connects RKB, the front door. That's the scanning portion of the program for the building and the solar above that. The front door itself. This is the product's called Knotwood. It's an aluminum wood or aluminum. It's a wood image clad on aluminum panels, if you would, or aluminum sticks. And then this is aluminum siding on top of that concrete tilt-up panel. This is a secured entrance point. That canopied entry looking back at RKB. So as you're kind of backing up towards the south, front door, or the side door, this is the scanning center. This is in the future master plan. This side of the building of this addition is the very campus side of the facility. So really getting this building positioned so it forms that southern edge to the campus, overall campus area. As you come around the building, highly mirrored glass so you can prevent views in but allow views out still. That keeps secure information secure within the facility itself. This is that knotwood material, and this is the metal panel, and just the sunshade is an architectural element. The fins themselves, this spacing, this is just the 2x2 position close together. As you move toward the right or towards the west, they just get further spanned out to create the kind of that dynamic finish as you see it from afar. As you come around the building, the west side of the building, material handling part of the building, and the screen for the compactor. And of course, the photovoltaic array and the loading dock itself in the dock entrance. So you've got the 4 doors plus entrance point for the compactor, and then a drive-up door. The concrete itself, again, it's all tilt-up. It's a ribbed finish, got a corrugated finish, a dark color, almost black, light textured finish, sandblasted finish. And as you come around the south, this is the RKB, it's the brick from RKB. This is that break room piece that spans the 2 buildings as part of the link. So it's a way for staff to take a rest from their desk, come out and have some lunch, still stay within a secure environment, but have a view of the outdoors and let's see some sunshine. The entire building also has windows up high for the most part to allow daylight in and views out. Again, another view just for that loading dock from Ingle Street. So you can see everything's well screened and the views are controlled. So as you look at the materials themselves for the building, the base of the building is the tilt-up concrete, which is site cast. Down low, it's a blasted finish, a sandblasted finish, then the ribbed, and there's kind of alternating ribbed and flat finish with reveals. Then you have metal panel with an architectural louver above. In the south, more of a sunscreen, as in the north is an architectural element. We have some louvered finish as well as part of that linking connection on the south side by the break room. And then the knotwood. The knotwood it's in 2 shapes and also 2 colors. So we have the darker finish out near the compactor, and then the lighter finish is what you see around the building articulation by the front door, et cetera. And that's where it's the 2x2 sticks as well as the 2x6 louvered piece that's at an angle, which is around the compactor and the generator enclosure. And that really provides, again, just a deeper screen of equipment behind that wall. Oh, let me go back. So that's the actual finish, red cedar, the winging, and then here's the actual glass samples, the metal samples. And this is an actual mock-up of that black, and we're just testing out some of the the coloration as well as some of the corrugation that it could be. And these are samples actually set up on the dock area at RKB as well, if you're going to go see it. And we have another full mock-up in process as well that's bigger to scale. And then back to that front door. And that's where you see the articulation of that. It's called knotwood, is this metal material, and the architectural concrete and the corrugation and the sandblasted finish. And so that's the high level view of the building itself and some of the finishes we're using. Scott Ayers is also on the phone if you have any specific question regarding the engineering review that's taken place. At a high level, it all seems reasonable and easy for us to respond to, even the increased pond size on the west side. So we're looking forward to any questions or feedback you may have.
Thank you, Matt. Who's next in your crew? Anybody?
Oh, that should be our presentation.
Okay, great. Is there anyone else here that is for the public hearing portion of, wanted to speak on the public hearing portion of this tonight? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and move to 5B, consideration of action on the request by Wisconsin Physician Service, WPS, represented by DLR Group for approval of the zoning permit for new construction at 1765 West Broadway, case number 2-002-2021. Rob.
I'll be abstaining.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Well, first, before in case anyone else was going to present, I'll turn it over to you, Doug.
Thank you. I can just give a couple highlights from the staff report that was included in the packet. So this is a 43,500 square foot administrative services building. A pre-hearing conference was held in January, on January 11th, with generally very positive feedback. Plans have changed sort of minimally, really from there. And so, as with the ordinance, the public hearing notice was mailed to adjacent property owners. The parking that is proposed, it is below code in terms of the square footage that's proposed. But the applicant does propose adding 27 parking stalls along both the northern and eastern perimeter of the site. As was noted in the engineering report, there is no, in the submitted plans, there are no ADA stalls, but it sounds like that is something that is being revised. Of note, though, the campus itself still does have an excess of parking, sort of as a total. It's just this building would be slightly less. Also worth noting is that the applicant has listed the easternmost portion of their campus, including the parking deck, for sale. All those numbers, the parking calculations did not include that parcel, did not include those numbers. So that's just a point of clarification. Again, the one point I did want to raise from the architecture was the screening, both the rooftop screening as well as the utility yard. Just in terms of the materials, as was already discussed, they tie in very closely to the exterior cladding of the building. But I just wanted to sort of put it to the commission in terms of if the screening itself is suitable for what is proposed. I know there was discussion on other applications of a similar sort of wood slat and things like that. So I just wanted to call that out for possible discussion. As was raised at the pre-hearing, the loading dock itself, the applicant had included extensive landscaping in the landscape plan, including 5 evergreen trees, as well as a swamp white oak to be across the street on angle there, kind of blocking the view of the loading dock from the south, specifically from the Beltline. Engineering review and stormwater, the full review letter from Darren Pope is included in the packet as attachment 1. He's also on the call tonight for both items that will be heard. So happy, feel free to direct any specific questions. The lighting, there is no light trespass above 3-foot candles at the property line. the lighting plan looks to be appropriate in terms of both the specification and the photometric plan itself. Signage is not being considered at this hearing tonight. There is some signage shown in the elevations, but that would require additional plan commission review at a later date. Finally, these were approved, these were sent to staff, department heads for comment. No additional comment was received. And with that, staff recommends approval with conditions as stated in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Ken, is there anything else that your team would like to say before we open it up to the commission?
No, Nancy, we've done a good job to summarize it. So let's go ahead and
Okay.
open it up to the commission.
Okay, great. Thank you. Chris, would you like to start this evening?
Sure. You can hear me?
Yes.
I wonder if, before we get going, if there's anything that Darren would like to add to this since he did the civil review.
I don't think so. I have had correspondence with Scott from Ayers about the comments. I hit, the majority of the comments were in regard to stormwater and the how new development, redevelopment, combination of those requirements will apply. Scott had asked some follow-up questions and worked things out, and also reached out to Scott after I made the comments, and we exchanged correspondence and spoke, and I don't think he had any concerns with meeting the comments that I had made.
Thanks. So we're good, and we have no issues on that. I read the reports, and it all seemed reasonable. I just want to know from the applicant that they're good with everything. So just as in the pre-hearing, I think this is a great use for this site. Thrilled to see WPS reinvesting in our community. I think it's totally appropriate. Having said that, I'm a little concerned about the architectural. We talked about it a little last time. I appreciated this view this time. We hadn't seen that level of detail last time. And some of the things are really hard to see on these half-scale plans. So it helps a lot when you get it up on your computer screen and we can see it that way. My major concern, I talked about a little bit last time, I mentioned more brick, and instead we have no brick, but I'm worried that we're putting a concrete tilt up on top of a brick building without much of a tie-in or much of a way to transition that architecture. We've got what's in WPS's campus is it's really an office park, and we've got, I'm not sure from your quick overview where you're putting panels exactly and not, but for a lot of these views, it looks like it's just a big concrete tilt up with some colored concrete. And I'm a little concerned how that's going to look in the business park. Everything around our office park, everything around it's brick. The stuff on the other side, the Southtown office park is brick and wood. And so I like what I saw with the aluminum panel that looks like wood. It's all about the look, but I see a lot of concrete, and I'm worried how that's going to look with the rest of the campus in that whole area. So that would be by far and away my overriding concern. Secondly, I think the landscaping is deficient substantially. For a 43,000 square foot building, it was in the staff report, typically it'd be 108 stalls, and that's usually our landscaping criteria is based on stalls because the building needs to be supported by parking. So it's one of the easiest ways to do it, but it includes not just landscaping for the parking lot, but also the building. And I think to say landscaping for this building is based on 27 or 29 stalls, whatever it was, is way light. And then what really compounds it is you're taking out more trees than you're putting in. When I went by there, it looks to me like, I didn't count them up, but you're taking out 30, 40 trees and putting back in 19. So we're actually putting in 43,000 square foot of building and taking out more trees than we're putting back in. So to me, there needs to be some enhancement on the landscaping. The question Doug brought up for the screening, typically when we do screening for an area, we screen it consistent with the building it's adjacent to, and I'm calling it the generator enclosure, but you've got a lot of stuff in there, is next to the brick Koenig building, yet you're screening it to match the building that's further away. So typically we'd look for a brick screening wall around that instead of the one that's proposed. If the commission feels like that can work, then that would be one place where I'd say we'd need to concentrate a lot more of the landscaping to be around that. I know in some of the other areas that WPS has done through the years, they've built some berms and done some more intensive landscaping. In fact, the generator that you're taking out, I think I counted a dozen trees or so just right around that one. So that's an area I'd look at. And my last comment, I'm not sure if we talked about this last time, but we have as a commission talked about it quite a bit, and that is preparing for the future of EV charging stations. And the one thing we talked about was if we had major applicants, and it doesn't get any more major for us than WPS, that we asked them to at the bare minimum put in conduit so that in the future when charging stations were needed for employees and things, the infrastructure is all in. Conduit's cheap, getting some out to where those parking stalls are where you feel like would be the appropriate place to have EV charging stations in the future would be part of what I think we'd like to see in this project, so that you don't have to tear up asphalt or landscape or anything in the future to be able to put those in when you feel it's appropriate. I think I would like to hear, aluminum cladding. I like the aluminum cladding. I'm just not exactly sure where you're putting it all. And it's, again, with half-scale plans, I'm using a magnifier and it's still really hard for me to try to read it all. So, and perhaps, I don't know if it'd be appropriate, Nancy, but perhaps before we get going too much further, we could get a little more insight into that. It would help me. I don't know if it would help the other commissioners to know how much of this is just a concrete wall and how much of it is actually some of the other materials.
Okay. Great, thank you. Before we get any further, Matthew or anybody else want to respond to that last point, just to give the rest of the committee some perspective?
Absolutely happy to. If I can share my screen again, then I can actually share the drawings. We can talk through them. So I trust everybody can see the screen. So this is, again, view from the north. So the entire structure of the building is the tilt-up concrete. It's how we clad the actual material itself. And so as I zoom in, the entire length is the metal panel, as well as that front door. There's cladding around this mass. And then the metal panel is really all around this lower story. So quite a bit. Then the knotwood here, as well as the glass curtain wall system. And as you look at the upper piece, this is all that screen wall, the screen system, the louvered system for the mechanical equipment, and that's metal panel as well on the central dock area. And as we come around the building, and I'll, let's see. So here's a little closer view of that link. That's the concrete, and then it's all metal. And this is on the north side as you go all the way through past the material handling space. And by the way, this is probably a great spot for EV connectivity, either here, probably here, because it's most accessible to a greater number of people versus the smaller parking lot in here, but very easy to respond to as well. And as you come around the building, again, this is all metal panel. Then we've got a base to the building, and that base is the dark material, dark concrete. So it's got something to sit on, if you would. It's of strength, the knotwood. Then as you come around the building, this is the west side. This is where the pond is. That's where we've mixed in the smooth finish, the corrugated finish, as well as the metal panel itself and glazing. So it's a very varied entire facade. It's got a lot of texture to it, contrasting materials, as well as landscape.
Could I ask, while you're on that page,
Yeah.
the lighter color material, is that cladding or concrete?
This is the metal.
So the only concrete is the dark color I see?
Correct.
Thank you.
And it's going to be a sandblasted finish, it'll have a little texture to it. And then the reveals themselves will be not sandblasted. They'll have a little more of a gloss finish to them, but it'd be the same color. And they'll appear a little darker because they're not sandblasted. So you sandblast the concrete, it gets a little dull sheen to it.
And Matt, this is Ken Roseth. If I could add real quick, the reason for a lot of the different materials that are into this facility is these three areas need to be resistant to tornadoes and not hurricanes, but tornadoes and shear winds and things that are that affect us every day. So this building has a structure that's very strong. The data center is going to be built to some of the tier 3 standards that are required to keep that data center running no matter what happens to the rest of the building. So yeah, some of the metal panels might shear off, or the knotwood may shear off, but the building itself will withstand those kind of things. That is for a disaster recovery, and we need that as a company to keep our operations going.
So as you come around the building, so this dark screen is really trying to reflect the darkness of the building. So again, it's more of a homogeneous color to it. It's got the material, they got a texture to it because of the slats, and then because of their pivot, also provide a higher level of screening ability. And as you come again to the southwest of the building, the loading dock, the screen, this is all metal panel. And this is the concrete with the architectural finish on it. And then as you get back to the link, so RKB is here, this is a corrugated or a louvered metal panel. This would be similar to that equipment screen up on the roof. Again, just another way to add some more texture, another material. It's the same metal that we have at the other spots, just a little different texture to it. It's also taken up the corrugated look of the concrete as well. This whole idea is to portray a technology building, modern building. It's a good kind of edge to their campus as time goes on. And then back to the front door. This is that same knotwood, but it used as a ceiling material, so the wider flange material, and then utilizing the slats themselves as a way to just again articulate, kind of soften the edge of that concrete. If you kind of zoom in, you can kind of see where the panels, the wood, how it's mounted to the wall, and then the corrugation texture as well, and then just the smooth finish.
And to address the electric vehicle charging stations, we have 4 of them right now currently in the Nordby ramp. And if the Nordby building is sold, those will be moved over here to just where Matt had indicated they would be.
And then the other thing to clarify, in terms of materials on the campus, the Nordby building is a concrete panel building. Mm-hmm. So it hadn't be white, but it's a material that does exist on the campus. So we don't think we're foreign from material selection for this building. We just felt that this coloration and use of metal like we're doing now just portrays that higher tech feel that WPS is looking for in their next campus building.
Okay, this helps me quite a bit. It is difficult to read them. I think the whatever panel you call that with the more wood color, I think that helps tie the color palettes in a little bit to the existing buildings. I think a lot of the primary views, you have the cladding, and that helps a lot. I think one place to probably punch up your landscaping then might be along that whole west side, because you're taking out a lot of nice trees there, and perhaps where you've got that whole side, which is a lot of concrete there next to the Southtown office park.
Yeah, so I think you're talking about, this is where the pond is.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
But when you look at the landscape plan, I think there's one tree at the very south end and one tree at the very north end, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think as we further develop this pond in terms of its new size, we can add some additional trees. And
yeah, and even depending on where your different storm events, your 10, your 100 are, you might even have trees on the bank or something if you want to get it far enough away from the building. But I think it would help soften it from the neighbor. And then the other places, depending on what the rest of the commission feels about that screening around the electrical equipment, generator equipment on the south end of the Koenig building, that would certainly be an area to have some saturation of landscaping around that too, to further screen it, as well as the further screening of the loading dock wherever you can accomplish that. But this has helped me, because what I don't want, and I don't think WPS wants, is just to start looking more industrial than office park. And there's in between, there's a business park, there's an industrial park, and then there's really what you have is an office park. And I really hope we can keep this looking like an office park and keep that.
I totally agree. And that's one of the fundamental reasons why Newcomb Construction is on the project as well, because their panel is not your typical concrete panel. I mean, it's a well cast, articulated, nice architectural finish on it. So and again, that's why they picked the dark color. So it doesn't look like precast concrete, but it's just a nice, durable, aesthetic material. It's got a nice, when you sandblast, it's got almost like a soft kind of look to it. It's quite nice.
Okay, and then my comment for the EV charging stations was just that it's cheap right now to put it in, and our sustainability committee and our plan commission are both really interested in making sure we're prepared for the future, and that clearly is going to be the future. I don't know when, I don't know your percentage of employees, but it likely will be going up. So it's just a cheap investment that we'd like to see most larger campuses make at this point in time, so we're ready for the future.
Excellent. Thanks for the feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Corinne.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. That was really helpful to go back and take a look at it again. So thanks for asking for that, Chris, and for doing that. I had just a couple of questions. In the letter that you submitted, there was you mentioned that it has a new address to allow it to have flexibility as a standalone facility in the future. And I guess I was just wondering if you could expand on that.
Sure. So one of the fundamentals, when you look at the infrastructure of the buildings, in particular your fiber lines, they require an address for them to demarc onto. And to allow this to exist as a standalone data center at some point, because that was one of the whole premise of this project is to upgrade this data facilities within RKB that currently sits within RKB. And so the best to do that was to put them in a new building. The best way to then future-proof that is to give it its own address, even though it's connected. So then when they bring a new fiber line, they actually have an address to place it to. So it's kind of a technical thing.
Okay.
It shouldn't, for most, it won't make it a difference because most people enter this facility through RKB, that address point. But that's kind of why we've got a new address for this building.
Okay. And I heard in the presentation you mentioned that you were addressing the ADA parking stall in that area by the new entry.
Yep, pretty much right where I'm sorry, not seeing the drawing at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, right to that front door, the side door, the new side door on the north end.
Mm-hmm.
It might be easier if I just share again. Yes, we'll be adding the required ADA stalls. So it's essentially right in this area. And so if I zoom back out, that is this parking lot.
Okay.
Pretty much in that location.
Are you putting in one or two, or what's your plan for that?
I think a pair of spots.
Okay. My question was about the landscaping as well. I also was having a hard time reading this, even with looking at it with magnifying glasses and everything. So I agree with Chris's comments about the west side. It's hard. The renderings are just renderings, really. But I wasn't sure what's in the stormwater planting mix, because it looks like sand dune plants in the renderings, and I know that that's not what's there. So I guess I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what is a stormwater planting mix and what that might actually look like. Because right now in the pictures that we're looking at, it looks scrubby.
Yeah, so I'd probably ask Scott to get more detailed if you can on that. Typically, it's more of a tall grass, more reed type material. It's got a longer root to it that allows moisture to wick into the ground. And so they're rainwater garden type foliage, if you would.
Yeah, and it needs to be wet tolerant. So they tend to be a little deeper roots, and I don't have the mix exactly right in front of me. I'd have to, and our landscape architect is not on this call. But it's generally more of a wet type seeding or plugs and things like that that'd be done. And this one, what's on our plan may actually change a little bit with our stormwater pond revision that we're going to be making to make it more of a biofilter at the bottom of the basin. So if you're familiar with more like rain garden type mixes and plantings, that's what it'd be more like.
Okay. Well, I do echo Chris's comments about thinking a little bit about that west side and maybe breaking it up. I know it'll be a little hard because it does need to be able to withstand that moisture, but Rob can't really say anything, but he would, have some.
Yeah, what are my limitations here?
Yeah.
Can I give like a general question or answer?
If I may, Madam Chair, we are allowed, he's abstaining, but we can ask for technical questions. We're certainly allowed for him to give us technical feedback.
I'm not sure if you were allowed to talk or
Just about to say that, yes, you can, as Chris has done in the past, other people have done in the past for a technical question, you're absolutely, Rob, go ahead.
So generally speaking, in a situation like this, we'll do it a mix of sedges and native grasses, depending on the desired effect. They could be low to tall grasses. And then also depending on kind of the ornamentation, a certain mix can be added, a certain percentage of forbs or native plants, some of which you might see otherwhere in the landscape. Rudbeckia, echinacea, sometimes cardinal flower are some examples of things that are sometimes thrown in that mix. But it's, as Scott alluded to, it's usually a lot of plugs of sedges and native grasses, because the sedges kind of come in and create kind of a lower base layer, and then the grasses are more taller, but they work in concert with one another. And then selecting certain forbs, they just kind of sprinkle in color.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, so if some of the taller grasses would break that up then to more than the shorter. I don't know what page it was. Let me see. Well, one of the pictures, it just looked like real low grass.
Yeah. And it's just the software generating a fictitious plant for those grasses. I'm familiar with the software used to create it, and some of the plants are depicted as more realistic, like the ones we're looking at right now, the hydrangeas in the front. Pretty good representation. The other ones populate just kind of a generic grass.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, so sounds like you have a plan for that, and Chris suggested some trees, so I'll leave it there. The other comment that I had was related to the screening, and it says that the mechanical should be fully screened. I guess I don't know what how the commission has interpreted fully screened in the past, if that means it has to have you can't see through it, or if it just means it has to be completely surrounded by whatever the material is. So I don't know if anyone has a sense for how we've interpreted that in the past. That would maybe be helpful.
Chris, would you like to respond to that?
Sure, I have a sense for that. Fully screened in the past, we've considered fully screened, not seen through a chain link or slats, which is why I suggested if the commission is satisfied with that slat type screening in the front of the building, when I say front towards the belt line, towards angle, then we would normally ask for a pretty good saturation of landscaping around that. So you may see through in individual areas, but you have to really, really look to see through. It takes your eye away from it. To have just yes, right there, to have just the screening, it depends on the opacity of it. It would be my best answer. If you can barely see through it, then it's fully screened. But I think there should be some landscaping around that enclosure. And it would depend on the opacity of the closure and how much Is that,
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
okay?
And if I could clarify, all that's behind this screen is that large generator.
Right.
But behind the more opaque screen is where the transformer is, which is
Okay.
fully screened. And then the switch gear that's on, there's a firewall other side of this the generator against the building is where the equipment panels are. So the generator has already got an enclosure it sits in, and we're hearing from MG&E their requirements for enough ventilation around that generator for supply and exhaust, that we get concerned if we're solid panel around it, that we'll have larger issues long term. So we want to try to maintain some level of airflow through it. But the equipment behind it is a big, almost like a shipping container, kind of what it looks like, that we'll paint again and it'll blend right in.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to take yours over, Kareem, but if I could add my 2 cents, a little landscaping. One thing I like about the enclosure you showed us, and it doesn't show up on the drawings we have, is it pulls the colors in from the Koenig building. And I like that we're kind of getting some colors going in, but I would still say that it's one area for some landscaping, but don't block it out because it's nice to see those colors.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm good. Thanks.
You're good?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next up, Christy.
Yeah, most of my concerns have been addressed. The ADA stalls, the trees, the grasses. I really do like the contemporary style. I think it's really a good look. I was wondering if with the conduit for the charging stations, if you might consider accommodations for e-bikes as well. E-bike sales have skyrocketed, and a lot of organizations are putting in accommodations for that. I was wondering, I saw that you wrote letters to the neighbors about the construction, and I was wondering if the letters went to the property owner, so Brett Riemann, the office complex next door, or did they go to the individual tenants of the businesses there? Because it is pretty close to where you'll be doing construction, and I think when you start your construction, it doesn't look like any of the trees will be leafed out, so I would think it might get a little noisy, and just wanting to mitigate any issues there.
So I can respond to that. The city sends out the notice, and it goes to the address itself of the property, but it's addressed, the sort of contact person is the person on the tax ID. So it may well be a LLC or something like that, but it goes to each of those properties.
Okay.
And so sometimes if it's sort of obvious or visible, I will sort of send it to someone if it's an out of town landlord or something like that. So they're aware and really try and sort of cover bases. It may be more difficult in sort of a multi-tenant space, but that's the sort of practice that I inherited and sort of carried on.
Okay, that sounds good. I just wanted to make sure that, it might be good to double check with Brad again, that he's contacted all of the tenants. Yeah, that's really all I have. So yeah, it looks great. I can't wait to take a tour. Hopefully you'll give a tour.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Christy. Susan.
Yeah, I think any questions I had, I was interested in the brick also, but just seeing the look again, I do like the look of this. I think it works well. I guess I'd just echo the landscaping. I think that'd make a huge difference. And I think the screening on the roof is also louvered, and that looks okay to me. It looks, reasonably opaque. So I really don't have any other questions. I think it looks great.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
Not a lot to add. Commissioners, for the most part, covered it. Building looks great. I'm excited about the addition to the campus. Kudos for the solar array on the roof. And good catch, Chris, on the EV charging stations. And Christy, I like the e-bike concept too. So thanks.
Great. Thank you. Can we come back to the full screen so I can see everybody?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure.
That's all right. Just want to make sure I haven't missed anybody. And I actually had a question as it relates to the not surprising. I'm also I want to say kudos for the solar. I would expect no less from WPS, of course. But I actually am also curious as to why the solar, it seems like the largest piece of the roof doesn't have anything on it. And for that matter, the RKB building, you know, is there any at the same time, or have you given any thought to putting some solar on there too? It seems like this is a building that's going to be sucking lots of energy. In processing, among other things, right? Because it's going to be going a lot. It's going to be, from what you guys described in the pre-hearing, you're going to be cranking out, you know, a lot there. So I'm just curious why the whole roof wasn't treated that way.
Well, we took this is an initial stab at solar, and we
Okay.
wanted to put it over a portion of the building where we wouldn't have much risk. So, you know, obviously there's people on the roof after putting in the solar, and we don't need leaks above any of the processing and the EOB air print mail area or the data area or the scanning area. Those three are pretty critical. So therefore we started with this piece of it, feeling that this was the largest piece that we would be able to put a solar array on that's uninterrupted.
Okay.
So.
Right.
So well, given that, so it would be, if that works well and you don't have issues with it, is that something that could be considered down the road for adding?
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
it's being
Yeah.
built so that you could add it. Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, we've sized the utilities and all the disconnects and switches so such that the solar ties right in, and we wanted to make sure we did that up front. So now adding solar is not a problem because we have already got the infrastructure ready to go.
Right.
But the original solar is going to be on that portion that's shown.
Great. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we'll take care of the EV charging. That's, you know, we work closely with MG&E as a partner, and also the other charging for bicycles and that stuff, that kind of thing. We'll take all that and put it into the project.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments, Chris?
Can I ask Rob one more question? Rob, where I'm particularly concerned about screening that long edge of the building would be by all the basins, which now some of them are infiltration, but would I be correct in some of those towards the top of some of those slopes or the little bit of flat space left, we'd still have an adequate room to put some canopy trees and evergreens in that would be able to screen without brushing up against the building?
Let me pull up my thing here.
Because we do have those slopes. I know we got to worry about wet roots, but they do come up and join the highland. So there are areas I assume we could do some plantings. Because when I was talking about the landscaping plan, right now you have a nice mix of some evergreens and some deciduous trees. And I think other than the screening for the loading dock, those 5 Black Hill spruce, the rest of it's all deciduous. It'd be nice to get a little mix along that side too, if we can.
Yeah, and there's options for evergreen that like wet feet too.
Yeah. Okay.
So you could certainly look at that.
I just wanted to confirm that. Another thing, I just don't recall, now we're talking about, Chrissy brought up the electric charging for bikes. I don't recall, where are the bike racks for this? I don't recall seeing them.
That's a good question. I think we had some in front of RKB. I think.
Will not we have a lot of employees, say back where that handicap parking is or where the EV charging might be? That might be another spot where you want to look at, because it begs the question, where are you going to put the charging for the electric bikes?
No, that's a great comment. Yep.
We currently, I think on the, we have the bike rack currently either on the east side of the building or on the north end. I can't remember right unless I look it up when I'm over on the campus, but we'll move that around accordingly and get it. I picture it after the comments today on the north side, right by that handicap parking. We'd have EV parking, we'd have bike parking, we'd have everything kind of in that corner.
If I could be so bold, my picture would be maybe leaving the one in the front of the Koenig building and having additional bike parking where this other entrance would be, so that employees coming in either entrance might have that opportunity. As far as where you would put the charging for an electric bike, that's your call. because
Sure.
quite honestly, if you have it for your employees, you say, hey, you got an electric bike, you got to come over and use this bike rack because we've got charging there for you. Aren't we a great company to work for? And then one more comment, it was brought up about the 2 addresses. I'm sure you know this, but I'd be derelict if I didn't mention it. You may have 2 addresses, but with buildings all attached like that, they could never be sold like that. You can't have 2 separate buildings crossing a property line. I know there's no property line there now, but if your intention in the future were to spread those or split those up and sell them, then you would need to probably get rid of that connector or do something so that you had 2 separate buildings.
We have no intention of splitting these buildings up and selling them
I
at the current time.
I anticipated that, but I just had to bring that up if we're talking about 2 separate addresses, that the city can't allow a building to go across 2 separate property lines like that. And that's not us, that's state statute.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from my crew? Josh, maybe Josh. I don't know if you've been taking notes this evening, but would you like to take a stab at a motion?
I'm gonna hand that right off to Chris.
Thanks, Josh. I move approval with
I'll
conditions.
prime you the next time, okay, Josh?
Now I'll be better prepared.
Move approval with conditions as recommended by staff 1 through 5. Add condition 6 that the landscape plan be revised and returns to Plan Commission for final approval. 7, that the conduit is put in place for electric vehicle charging and electric bike charging stations. And 8, the additional bike racks that we discussed tonight, which that can all be shown on the landscape plan that's coming back.
Great. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll take that. I can second it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, WPS. We look forward to seeing it sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Nancy. We really appreciate the opportunity tonight to get the feedback from you.
Sure. Well, we appreciate you guys very much, and we're excited to see this new building, and we're glad you can put see you put other feet down, if you will, wet feet too.
Sure.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, number 5C, the public hearing on the request of Monona Grove School District, represented by Point Beginning Inc. for approval of zoning permit of a new artificial turf field and replacement running track at 4400 Monona Drive, case number 2-003-2021. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Geffert with Point of Beginning once again.
Hang on 1 second. I think I know Mr. Homburg wants to say something. Go ahead.
I have to abstain again.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll also abstain.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate it. Andrew, go ahead.
All right, thank you. As you may remember from the last time I was with you, Monona Grove High School is looking to take its existing football field and track and rebuild those. The most significant change would be changing the existing grass field into a synthetic turf field and rebuilding them to look newer and better, to better serve the community in all weather conditions. I could go into more detail, but that's the brunt of the project.
Okay. Great. Is there anybody else here that would like to speak during this public hearing portion this evening? Okay. That being the case, we'll close the public hearing and go to 5D, consideration of action on the request by Monona Grove School District, represented by Point of Beginning Inc. for approval of a zoning permit for new artificial turf field and replacement running track at 4400 Monona Drive, case number 2-003-2021. And I'll remind the commission that that Chris is available for technical questions, just as we just did in the last presentation. You know, if there is something technical that he would be helpful for him to answer, he's happy to do that, as he did, I think, the last time. So on this particular project. Josh, do you want to start off? Oh, sorry. Let me go to Doug. Almost did it again. Doug, go ahead.
Thank you. Not really too much to add here. I would defer again to Darren Pope. He has reviewed these plans. They are stamped, reviewed. There was a lot of dialogue between the applicant's engineer and Darren moving forward with this. The stamped reviewed plans were included within the packet. A couple small things were called out. The impervious surface was raised at the pre-hearing on January 11th, and that does fall. It's 63.2% impervious, even including the field, the synthetic turf field. So that was addressed. And just as an update, city staff are currently coordinating to finalize and record the stormwater maintenance agreement. And that's something that Brad and Darren are sort of taking forward here, which would of course be needed before the stormwater and erosion control permits could be issued. So know that is currently underway. So staff recommendation is approval of the zoning permit with the conditions as stated in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Josh?
I don't really have much to add here, Nancy. In fact, I should say I have nothing to add. My biggest concern is about stormwater management, and that comes down the road. I'm glad to see that Darren's been involved on behalf of the city and that he's working closely with the applicant. So I'm going to trust that process.
Okay. Thank you. Corinne?
I also didn't have anything. So
okay.
Same with Josh.
Okay. Rob?
I desperately wanted to grill Chris, but unfortunately, like the pre-hearing, things were in pretty good shape then, and I can't see anything to comment on now. So you're off the hook for now, Chris.
Christy?
Yeah, I didn't have anything to add either.
Okay. I think that's it. Wow, you guys must be worn out. No, only kidding. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval with conditions as described by staff.
Okay.
I don't know, however Chris usually says it.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, Rob, great. I have a second. Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. Nice work, Andrew, Jared. We look forward to seeing them. Thanks very much for everything.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoy the field once it gets built.
Yeah,
We
we'll have
will.
a track
We have to
night.
go run on the track.
Yeah, can't
great.
wait.
Indeed, indeed. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
You too. Going to number 6, new business, we have none. Number 7, reports of staff and commission members.
Thank you. So as was shared with the commission, we have quite a few things coming up on the docket. The March 8th meeting, we will have the consideration of action of the Four Lakes Yacht Club that we had the pre-hearing for last meeting. There will also be a zoning permit application from a potential tenant for the Treasure Mart, the former Treasure Mart space on Emright Drive. So that would be scheduled for one meeting with the consideration taking place at that. There would also be a pre-hearing conference taking place for the current Monona Garden space. There is a proposal that's moving through. It's sort of a preliminary workshop. They're looking for feedback. Currently, the plans sort of call for a mixed use, 4-story, primarily residential development with ground floor live workspaces, potentially retail space. So there's a lot of interesting concepts that the applicant is putting forward and would like some feedback on, including sort of green, sustainable infrastructure and practices as well. So really wanted to bring that to the commission pretty early on to get some feedback. There's some thinking there about car sharing and things like that. So really sort of encourage them to come forward to have this discussion. So there are some massings that are already developed, but they're looking for feedback. There may be, depending upon the direction they go, these may be market rate, they may be condos. There's a lot of pieces still in the air, up in the air, but they wanted to come forward for a pre-hearing, so that would also be at the March 8th meeting.
Great.
And then just as an economic development update, I know that the city administrator is working with Devin at MESBA, and the listening session that was mentioned during the economic development presentation is moving forward. They're finalizing dates right now. Devin's done a great job of sort of pulling together interested both community leaders as well as business owners here in Monona. So looking forward to being a part of that and sort of hearing how the city can work and collaborate better with local businesses and help them all progress.
Terrific, Doug. Thank you. And no, Treasure Mart is not cars. Just a heads up.
Okay, I was wondering.
Treasure. It's got to be treasure.
Right. So yes, we will have a full docket. Does anybody have any other questions for Doug? Any other items? Chris?
It's really a question for you and Doug.
Yes.
Normally, we require applicant to have a packet in 2 weeks ahead of time so that we have adequate time for both consultant review and staff review. And I have no idea what WPS's intent is, but in light of the fact that the only review we have when they come back is the landscape plan, I'm just suggesting if the chair and staff feel it's adequate time, we in the past had said, yeah, if you get that to us by Monday or Tuesday, as long as Doug feels like he can have a write-up ready for that, because we likely wouldn't send that out to external staff for review. It's a possibility if they need something quicker. I'm just throwing that out, that it's something we have done in the past when it's not a lot of staff review.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I will certainly reach out to the applicant tomorrow morning. I'd be happy to accommodate that from a staff side. So we'll see from their consultant side how quickly they can turn it around. But I know they were on a pretty tight timeline, so I'd be happy to accommodate that.
That's what they had said. It may not matter to them, the landscape plan, but again, they might want to have certainty there before they move ahead. So that's just why I threw it out there, just so we can
Definitely
accommodate them if we need to.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Anything else? And I just to be clear, as it relates to the email that I sent you all out, as it relates to the last meeting when we talked about updates, potential updates of the Broadway design plan. It's not that we're, Doug and Brian are looking at that and also looking at that in relation to how it dovetails and doesn't with the comprehensive plan and other plans that we have. And while we're busy tackling all these other big projects over the next month to 6 weeks at least, they're going to be looking at all of that and coming to us with some recommendations in that regard. So it's just, again, it's not that it's not on the radar. We know that it's something we need to look at it. It's just, even putting these materials together for full meetings like tonight, and with all the applications that are going on right now, it's a lot on the staff. So I appreciate everybody's patience in that regard, but we will get to it. It would be nice if we had the original Broadway design plan to be able to operate off of. It's not, we don't have the original. It wasn't a computerized thing at the time that it was done because it was so long ago. So we would have to, we'd have to work you know, if it's kind of an update, wanting to use some of the old drawings, it would be a bit of a challenge. And copy, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure that out when we get to it. Anything else this evening? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move adjournment.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks again, everybody.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Good
Night.
night.
Everybody stay safe.
Thanks, Darren.
Get out and see the trees before they get burned down on the lake out in front of Stonebridge.
Are they being burned?